Hi everybody, it's Julia, your trusted travel expert, helping you find that je ne sais quoi wherever you are in the world. And I am in a pretty spectacular place where the je ne sais quoi just sort of oozes out of every corner. And I am currently sailing on the Douro River Valley in Portugal. We're almost to the border with Spain. We're coming to the end of our wonderful cruise, and so I wanted to give you a little bit of insight and overview about this amazing travel opportunity that is really, really popular. So the trip I'm with Tauck Tours, who's one of my favorite tour operators, and they are actually doing something a little bit unique that I haven't seen many other tour operators or cruise lines do. So we started in Lisbon with a couple nights there, embarked on the ship in Porto, and are sailing one direction, one way, all the way up to the border with Spain, where we're then going to get off and go to Salamanca and end in Madrid. Most river cruises, not all, but most river cruises spend 7 days going from Porto up to where we are and then back. And then some have pre-nights in Lisbon or post-nights in Lisbon or Porto, all of which are fabulous and worth doing. But I just wanted to give you an example because I was very curious about how can we sail one way in 7 days that all the other cruises sail back and forth in 7 days. And so I actually asked the captain that the other night. We had a great Ask the Captain Q&A night. And he said that there's really not much difference. The one way, the direction that we're going, which you can go either direction, but the one way trip is just a little bit more relaxed, a little bit less rushing to make your lock times or make your embarkation times. And instead of just going through 5 locks in 7 days, which we have now done, I think, or maybe we have one more, you do 10 locks in 7 days. So that's just a little insight if you're comparing different itineraries. But just a little bit about the cruise it's really spectacular. There's a reason this is such a popular cruise, and it sells out pretty far in advance. So if this is something that you're looking to do, you definitely want to give yourself a good 6-8 months, even, really, especially if you want your pick of cabins or your pick of dates, something like that. Summer can get very hot. It is October and I am perfectly warm. I'm actually pretty warm. I might roll these sleeves up, but it is glorious and beautiful. So the season does run from spring into fall, and so like I said, you always start in Porto, and then Porto is pretty well known, and it is well known for a reason because it is an awesome town. It is gorgeous. It is up the banks. You'll see, well, we're sort of coming to an open area, but we've been in very, very steep gorges. But the banks of the Douro, all up and down, are pretty steep. And so Porto town goes up the hill to where they have, a cathedral and a tower and things like that up on the top of the hill. And it's super dramatic and super quaint. All the buildings have tiles. And it's lovely. It had cute shops, cute restaurants. I could have spent probably a week in Porto. It was really, really cute. So if your cruise doesn't spend, a good day and a half, something like that in Porto, you may want to extend and make sure you have at least an overnight or two there because it's really worth checking out. And then all of the little stops along the way are much less well known and much less, they're not like famous. You won't have heard of them, like some of the other river cruises that you can take. But it is so charming. Everywhere you go to these little historic, like we went to a town called Guimaraes, which, I'd never heard of before. And that's the town where Portugal, the nation, was really born. And it's got all this really cool medieval architecture and history. It's a really cute little town. Again, there were some cute shops and cool old things to see. Versus, like yesterday we sailed, and if you can tell, it's kind of pretty. Although, again, this is all of a sudden much less dramatic than it's been all day. We sailed and stopped and went to a quinta, which is their term for, winery. And the quinta, we've learned a ton about wine. There is a lot of wine drinking, port drinking, of course. I've learned a lot about port. I had a port cocktail making class that was really fun and surprisingly delicious. A lot of people might think they don't like port because of maybe previous experiences, but believe me, you come here and I think you might change your mind. It's really quite spectacular. But if you don't like wine, you don't have to, it doesn't, even though this is not a wine specific trip, it does have quite a lot of wine tasting opportunities for those that are wine fans. But like my mom's not a big wine fan and she hasn't done any of the wine tasting. You know, one day she relaxed in her room and washed her hair and washed out some clothes, but another day she went to an 18th century palace that, or I think might have been earlier than that, that she loved. It had beautiful gardens and it was really historic and beautiful. There was also an opportunity, we went to a 12th century monastery ruins one day that was really cool before we had a sparkling wine tasting. There was an opportunity for a bike ride. There's just all kinds of different things that you can do that aren't necessarily wine focused. So if you're not a port fan or not a wine fan, don't discount it, because frankly, the scenic beauty of what they've done, and you can kind of see it on this hill behind me, or maybe you saw it earlier, and coming up all around me that you can't quite see yet. They have taken, over the centuries, the Douro River Valley is so significant because it was the first recognized wine growing region in the world. It was sometime in the 1750s. So in the 1600s, they started coming to these hills and carving out terraces. And so everywhere you look, the hills are carved, are terraced with old stone walls, or even just the way that the vines have, you know, held them up over the centuries. And they have been producing wine here for hundreds of years. And what's another great thing about this river, contrary to a lot of the other rivers that you travel in Europe, this river was not you couldn't navigate it with commercial ships until about 20 years ago, literally. The way they got the wine down river was really difficult. It was on these really cool old flat bottom boats that you see all over Porto, called rebelos. And it was really dangerous, had a lot of rapids, and it was just a crazy trip. In fact, one of the British men who popularized this region and exporting port to England, he died in a Rebelo river crash in the 1860s or something like that. But Portugal, during their dictatorial, they had a dictator for about 40 years, but during that time and since, they have put in tons of money in infrastructure. And so, like I said, we've gone through a couple dams, so they've dammed up the river so that all those rapids and scary parts are gone. It's usually a very steady, even depth. It is calm as all get out. If you can tell, it looks like glass. And there's no commercial traffic. It's really only the river boats that go up and down. So you aren't seeing, you know, barges go by with tons of, you know, coal or anything like that transported. It's really pleasure cruising, and it's just spectacular. And I can't say enough about how wonderful the Portuguese people are, how great the food is. They know how to make a pastry here, I cannot tell you. There's just so much to recommend it. And if you have any questions, this is just a really quick overview of why, helping you understand why the Douro River cruise is such a popular thing to do, because it's really wonderful. So if you're interested, let me know and I can give you the nitty-gritty. Otherwise, keep tuned in, because I've got lots of footage to share with everybody, because it has been spectacular. And now all of a sudden in front of me there's a field with a whole bunch of sheep. Every corner there's a new surprise. It is spectacular here. That's it for this week, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.